Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Wazadome TV. Today, I have another very, very special guest. Man, he's into media, music, athletics, man, some of everything. Our Pan-African brother, all the way from France, man. Brother Fernando, thank you for coming through Wazadome TV.
Peace, my brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm honored, man. I love what you got going on over there with Wise Dome TV, man. I've been following for I can say years now, so
Wow.
it's dope.
Again, I appreciate what you do as well. For everybody who may not be familiar yet, go to Black Power Media, subscribe, and Vital Hoops podcast. Definitely a dope podcast. You're going to get a lot of Pan-African talk, but it's also going to involve the music. It's going to involve sports. It's going to involve what's going on in the global South. And so I appreciate what you do, brother. And also, my comrade and co-host of the Rise Up International Morning Show as well. So y'all make sure y'all tap into that.
No doubt. Appreciate you, man.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So, everybody's first time on, I like to kind of ask them, how did you become radicalized? Like, were there any specific experiences or influences that led you to embrace radical politics and Pan-Africanism?
Man, that's a good question. It's to be honest, it was kind of a gradual thing, but at the same time, I felt like I had it inside, all of my
Mm,
life. You
hmm
know, like growing up. Um, I'm Afro-Cuban, but I'm half white, right? So my mother was French, my father was Afro-Cuban, and I grew up in Havana, with my cousin from my father's side. So we grew up together, and I started hooping early,
mm,
and we got into hip hop together.
yeah.
So me and my cousin, so we started, and once hip hop hit me, like,
hmm
I started listening
hmm
to certain artists,
hmm
and catching on to certain things, black consciousness and all of that. And then from there, my cousin and I, we've always been, um, and then just certain things that just bother me, like inequality, just seeing
Yeah.
things around me that, it has always bothered me as a kid, so searching for justice and this and that. And so, when you start growing up, start understanding certain things and researching your history as an African, you know what I mean, where your ancestors came from and all of that.
hmm
And so, it was kind of gradual, but then, obviously the autobiography of Malcolm X, that's one of the, like many of us, that was one
Yeah.
of the books that kind of woke me up.
Same here.
My older brother gave me that when I was like a teenager.
hmm
So, and then, like I said, from the music, hearing about Garvey, hearing about, certain, some of our revolutionary leaders, and then getting to the books, and
Yeah.
really learning. And then, going outside and just doing the work, working with certain different organizations, and people were doing work with the community, in Cuba through hip hop also, like what I call, hip hop, artivism,
I like
and
that.
all of that. And then, yeah, no doubt. And then really, um, in my most recent years, joining the Pan-African League Umoja,
hmm
here in France, you know what I mean, which is a great Pan-Africanist organization that I'm proud to be a part of. And yeah, it's been gradual, but it's always been a part of me, and who I am, really.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned being Cuban and living in France. That's kind of the same story as the group of BA. I really like them. They're dope. Are you familiar with them?
The say
The
that,
two
what's the
the two
name?
sisters of BA. They're from Cuba. There's two Cuban sisters who live in France
The
now.
twins,
Yeah,
the
the twins.
twins. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. eBay,
yeah.
eBay.
Ibe.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No
yeah,
doubt.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with their work. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure, for sure.
dope, dope,
Yeah.
dope.
Mhm.
You mentioned artivism, like how important, like, especially with what's going on now, right? And you
Mhm.
mentioned how, it was not the only thing, but hip hop is one of the things that helped you, help radicalize you. And the same here,
Yes.
like being young and hearing like, fight the power on the radio
Yes.
or, seeing X Clan and, Brand Nubian and,
Yes.
just things like that, right? Like, that was really important for me, growing up and being able to kind of, you know, understand that everything that, not like the way we feel as African people, there's people that can articulate it, right?
Yeah, 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 for
Um,
sure.
so like, what do you like when we look at, things going on now, man? Like, how do you feel about the state of music, as far as, being a vehicle that can potentially help radicalize the youth?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, before I get to that, let me give you like a quick story. Like I remember speaking of that, I remember when I was young and I was in Cuba and we didn't always have access to like um all these the channels to watch all the hip hop videos and what we wanted
Yeah.
to check out, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But I remember one day being at a friend's house that had he had like channels. He had like US channels. He had
Mhm.
a antenna,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
was able to watch it and so I remember uh Day Schools, man, from Dead Prez being on BET. And
Yeah.
when I saw that, man, I was like, yo, this is it right here. This is what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And that right there, man, that inspired me so much. I remember that one right there, just being a moment, that kind of like a clicking moment, like, dang, you know?
It's funny that you mentioned that Let's Get Free, Dead Prez, obviously a classic album. I believe we're at like the anniversary, yeah, the 25th
Yes.
anniversary of the
Yeah, yeah.
album now, right?
No doubt, no doubt.
Um, like even in 2025, what does that album mean to you? Like, because for me, I still
Man,
listen to it, man. Like it's
listen,
like,
I do too. And it's like it came out yesterday. You
right,
know what I'm saying?
right,
It's that
right.
type of a classic. It sounds like one of,
Hmm.
like it just came out yesterday. But to me, I mean, to be honest, I think that's like the perfect album.
Right.
It's a perfect album as far as the politics,
Hmm.
the African pride and the socialist, ideology, all of that. It all comes together like perfectly. I don't think there's an album like that one as far as being hardcore, radical, true hip hop, all of
Right.
that combined in one. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just really powerful, man. So it's just definitely one of my, if not the, if not my favorite album, definitely one of my favorites. And I think it's a super classic. Like,
Yeah, yeah, me
you
too,
know what I'm
man. I
saying?
think for the anniversary, they're gonna be re-releasing CDs and vinyls, so I might have to.
Hey, and I
Yeah,
know they're working on, I've been
yeah,
following, but, and I'm excited because I saw him with Sheun Kuti. I'm a fan of Sheun
yeah. Me
Kuti as
too. Me
well.
too. Me
And so
too.
I'm sure they got some works
Man,
coming, man.
man, look, a collab between them two, man, that would be
That would be great.
so. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
we
no
need
doubt, man.
that.
Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah, because Seun Kuti, on tour right now, I believe, right? Is that
yeah, 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 yeah. He's on tour right now. He's been on tour for a little while. He dropped he's been dropping joints, man. I love
mm-hmm.
his music and obviously he's on point as far as the ideology and all of that. But even just the music, it's everything. It's great to see him, what I'm saying, as far as being, the son of the great Fela Kuti, seeing him carrying the torch, even with
Yes.
their organization and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. I know he picked up his father's organization. I think that's really great. And it's something that, in my opinion, is kind of missing from the Marley brothers. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Unfortunately.
Kind of get into that a little bit, because isn't Ziggy like married to like a Zionist?
Yes, yes, unfortunately, man, it's crazy. Like, Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, he is, and he's been
Mhm.
saying some wild stuff, man.
Yeah.
He's been saying some
But
wild.
are any of the kids carrying on some of the politics of Bob Marley, in your opinion?
Not that I'm aware of,
Not
but
even Damien, huh?
sometimes I mean, Damien could be one of, if anybody, I think it might be
Might be him.
Damien or
Mm.
maybe Kimani on the low. I'm not
Hmm.
sure. Kimani's a little more low key.
Hmm.
I'm not sure 100%, but I mean, it doesn't look like it, but they could be doing some things on the low that we don't know about. Like Bob did a lot of things on the low,
Yeah. Hmm.
as
Hmm.
far as his money, where he was moving his money,
Hmm.
that a lot of people didn't know that, he, for example, was helping out gorillas and,
Yep.
real shit like that. And that was on the low for a long time. A lot of people didn't know. So.
Hmm. No, I understand it because I've heard not just not just with the Marley kids, but I've heard certain criticism from rosters in the Caribbean, that they have against some of the newer roots artists.
Yeah.
And so it's
Uh,
not anything that is not already out there. We're not trying to, point any fingers at anybody, but this is a criticism that I've heard from people there. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
No doubt. And that some of that criticisms makes me think of, because I'm from the Cuban hip hop movement, growing
Mm-hmm.
up in Cuba. And so a lot of that criticism also makes me think of people asking me why I don't like reggaeton. They're like, oh, why
Mm,
don't you like reggaeton? And I'm like, listen, when we were growing up, as MCs, the people who started doing reggaeton in Cuba, they were basically sellouts. Like they would
mm,
stop, like the hip hop movement was all about, consciousness and the word, you
mm-hmm,
know, uh, and when you started doing reggaeton, you would forget about the message and you would just start,
mm.
speaking all that crazy stuff, like talking down on women,
Hmm.
and you were basically just going for a check, basically,
Right.
and you leave the movement and the consciousness. So, that kind of stuck with me. Like I can't lie, I'm part of that movement growing up, and you
Hmm.
people who switched to reggaeton, they would just drop the message and drop the mission, man. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So that was.
Indeed. Can you talk some more about the Cuban hip hop scene and
Mhm.
movement and consciousness within that? You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah,
think
no doubt.
that's very
Yeah,
important.
I mean, the Cuban hip hop movement is really tight. Like even to this day, like we're all really close, even though
Hmm.
some people may achieve, some fame,
Hmm.
others don't, but everybody's pretty close because it's a close, community. It's not
Hmm.
like a lot of us. Like,
Hmm.
the popular music in Cuba, obviously it's like salsa and Cuban music, and we're kind of seen as, different.
Hmm.
Um, but unfortunately, like everywhere around the globe, we kind of lost that pro-blackness within the
Hmm.
the the, the hip hop, which was automatic. Like
Yeah.
when I started in like late '90s, early 2000s, all of that, it was like automatic. That was part of that was hip hop, and today we've kind of lost that over there as well. Um, but I'm proud to be a part of that movement, and the people that came before me are people that directly learned from Asada and Nahanda.
Mm. Mm.
Nahanda Abiodun, she's known as the godmother of hip hop. And have she would get together with the MCs in Cuba and the hip hoppers, not just MCs, even like other like B-boys and things like that. And she would get together with them and they would, she would do basically political education. You know what I mean? And so that's where we got our knowledge from. That's when we started
Oh.
really putting it together. You know what I'm saying? Because we were living our own things within Cuba. Even
Hmm.
though it's a socialist country, you have to understand like there's still racisms, there's still things that we leave as black that we go through as black people. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And then learning from people like Nahanda and Asada, really help us get the international perspective, the global perspective.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And put things together and have a message for our people locally, but also speak about things that were happening globally. So a lot of the guys that came before us, before our group, they were able to pass that on, what I'm saying, to us. And, we try to do the same thing. Even though, like I said, today it's shifting, people
Yeah.
want to, what I'm saying? But
Can you talk about some of and this is not again, um, we obviously respect and appreciate Cuba for its revolutionary history.
no doubt.
I don't I don't think it's again fair to gloss over what you said about there still, being instances of racism, even though, it's a socialist nation. Can you just talk about you know,
Yeah.
what racism looks like in Cuba?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult topic, because unfortunately, it's taboo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
A lot of our people, in our circles don't want to necessarily speak about it,
right.
especially publicly. But me coming from there, I've worked with a lot of people locally and we know what we go through, and our people actually feel like, yo, we need our brothers and sisters to talk about it also from
Mm.
outside, from different spaces, because we want them to hear us.
Hmm.
Not just to think that everything is smooth down here because it's a socialist country and all that. We have things we go through as well. You know what I'm saying? And it's important because like I'm on a mission to grow Pan-Africanism in Cuba. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Hmm.
Without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? And so there's a lot that happens. For example, our people, even though, for example, education is free to all, it's free to all, but there's still a lot of instances where our people may not have the same access
Mm.
to
Hmm.
for example, university, because a
Hmm.
lot of our people may need to be already working. They may need to be working to make money because
Uh,
they're in more difficult situations.
yes.
So they may not have the opportunity to just be like, no, I'm going to just study and go to school.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things like that. Then there's things, for example, tourism is what makes the most money in Cuba, right? It's like, unfortunately, it's like the industry, quote unquote, where
Hmm.
the most money is made. And if you look at like, uh, the people that have the highest ranks within tourism, it's almost always white Cubans or lighter skinned Cubans. You know what I mean? So things get difficult. Also, money that is sent into the country, money that is sent into the country usually comes from people who have families overseas. A lot of overseas families, most of them are white families coming from, whether it's Miami or other places, those are white Cubans. So the
Hmm.
black families inside of Cuba don't get a lot of that economy, coming in. Um, so, it's just difficult situations all around where our people end up being, at the bottom as well. Some things could be dealt with better from inside. Of course, we
Yes.
know what's going on. Of course, obviously, uh, where we know the oppression that is coming from the United States and all of that, but we still believe that some things could be dealt better from within, what I'm saying, the country. And
Are there organizations there that are working for that, working towards that?
Yeah, there
Hmm.
are organizations. I was working with a couple of them when I was down there for sure. And there's a lot of there's a lot of brothers doing work. A lot of the work like anti-racist work in Cuba,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, it's difficult work. Sometimes you run into problems. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to let them know that, listen, I'm a revolutionary as well. I'm
Hmm.
not no, I'm not out here trying to promote imperialism or none of that, but we want to speak about what's going on for us, because in Cuba it's not allowed for us to even really come together and build an organization unless we're part of a government established
Mm.
thing.
Right.
you know
Hmm.
there's reasons for that. They're also trying to be careful with anything
Yeah.
coming in from, but also it's also not necessarily a good thing, because why can't we get together as black folks, as Afro-Cubans, and speak about what we got going on and what we need to do for ourselves? So, it's there's a lot to speak on, man, when it comes
Yeah.
to that. But yeah,
Honest.
those are just some of the things that we, go through.
Yeah, I understand, and I definitely appreciate you mentioning that.
Um,
And as far as France go, what is the current climate like for Black folks in France?
Man, France, it's the empire, man. Right now
Yeah.
they're angry, man, because they're getting kicked out of the motherland, which is a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. But
Yeah.
there's no, but yeah, no, but honestly, you can feel the police oppression right now rising, also with the rise of fascism and all of that. So it's been difficult, honestly. Like right now, we in the neighborhood where I live, for the past couple of days, there's been like a couple shootings that have made like, national news or whatever. So the bad part, the worst part about that is the police just nonstop around us, and my children, I have two young kids, they have to go through that, police constantly with machine guns and things all
Mm.
around,
Mhm.
and that's nasty. But they recently, a young black Muslim brother was assassinated as well.
I
You
saw
know,
that. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of Islamophobia, racism, everything. And with this rise of fascism, they get comfortable. You know how it is. These groups, these right-wing groups, they start getting comfortable,
Hmm.
and they come outside and they get more violent. So.
Do you think that a lot of these right-wing groups have seen people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk and what they're doing in America and have become inspired in places like France to be all out in the open with the shit like they are here? Or was it already like that?
I think it was already like that, but I still think they do get inspired and juice from it. They
Yeah.
get high from it. They get, in Paris, here in France. there used to be a lot of skinheads back in the day, you
Hmm.
know. And now there's still some, but they're a little more low key because there were a lot of brothers and sisters that got together and built quote unquote gangs, but more so
Hmm.
organizations to
Hmm.
protect the people.
Yeah.
And so in the like I think I don't want to get the wrong dates, but I think it was like in the 80s, I believe, maybe 70s and 80s and even early 90s. Um, brothers and sisters, there's a couple of well-known ones called the Vicious Sharks, les
Hmm.
requins vicieux, and also the Black Dragons,
Hmm.
Black Dragons.
Hmm.
They would do martial arts. They would get together and they would
Hmm.
chase skinheads around the city because
Wow.
these motherfuckers were, going after our people, and beating
Hmm.
black people down for no reason. Uh, you know, and so yeah, so there was a lot of that, and so today there's a lot more black folks, but I'm talking like a few years back, there
Yeah.
wasn't that many, relatively that many black people in Paris or in France. It was like first generations and things like
Hmm.
that. So you know what I mean? So they would, and so, but it's a good thing that this happened. And so now they calm down a little bit. But every time this type of, fascism rises, these people come out, they start
Yeah.
feeling more
Hmm.
comfortable. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, that's deep. I love to hear about the the organizations that was running skinheads off. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
oh yeah.
that's yeah, yeah. Like I don't think a lot of people outside of France may not understand or know about history like that because anytime we hear about gangs and street organizations, obviously, the first thing they want to talk about is, the crime aspect of it. But
Right.
the community watch and neighborhood control, I mean,
That's right.
are those brothers and sisters still, are those organizations still in France?
I mean, so I know that some of those brothers are still around, but
Yeah.
a lot of these organizations they kind of they were dismantled. There's still the anti la brigade anti-negrophobie, so like anti like negrophobia brigade
Mm-hmm.
that exists,
Hmm.
and
Wow.
they do a lot of work. And then there's other organizations and Pan-Africanist organizations and things like that. But yeah, yeah, a lot of them though they separated and went their own ways and did their own things. A lot of those people are actually the hip hop movement,
Hmm.
old school.
Hmm.
Some of those brothers are just now into like health, fitness, things like that. And, there's a lot of different
What's
people,
the
but
hip
yeah.
hop scene like out there? How is it, is there still a conscious aspect to hip hop coming out of France?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's kind of like everywhere else where the
Hmm.
commercial aspect has taken over. I believe like France is big in hip hop because to be honest, the markets is I think it is third or it was third next to the first is obviously United States, then it was I think Germany and then France in the world. So
Wow.
it's pretty
Hmm.
big with hip hop. But as far as the underground scene, um, there's still even if you look at there's still some old school brothers and a few new ones that are still doing conscious things
Hmm.
like good like as far as the lyrics and all of that. But underground, yeah, it's still alive as well. And uh we're hearing a lot of different things from the youth. Some of the
Hmm.
underground things are more like street and there's none of the conscious side, but some of it does have the conscious side to it.
Hmm.
It depends. It's kind of like everywhere. But unfortunately, we have that problem as well. I don't know if you heard in one of the Vital Hoops episodes I did with Marcel P. Black,
Yeah.
he was talking about how like, unfortunately at his shows, a lot of times it's just like all white people, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And he wants to talk to his people,
Yeah.
but it's the truth. Like within underground hip hop, we get a lot of that. And here we
Hmm.
can see it as well. People that are into underground hip hop and really like lyrical, conscious, boom bap, whatever it is, a lot of times it's a lot of white fans, man. And
You'll be
uh,
surprised, man, at the conscious shows that I've been to.
mm,
It's a lot of white people in the
yeah,
audience. Like,
yeah, that's real talk. It's the same over here. Like
mhm.
even the other day, even someone like Kweli, I went to see Talib Kweli. He came through over here not too long ago. I loved it. He came out to Fela Kuti and all of that. Concert was
Yeah,
dope.
Yeah.
But like, you know what I'm saying? I look around me, it was me and my wife, we look around, it's like almost all white folks, man. I'm like, damn, all right, people need to be in here, man.
Real talk, man. What about like any, as far as Pan-Africanism and radical politics amongst our people, what does that look like in France?
Um, you know, it's difficult to say. Like, obviously when we're within our circles, because I'm a part of organizations, so I talk a
Yeah.
lot to the comrades and this and that. But when you go out to the real world, quote unquote, and you see that, the the level of political education is not there. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? It's just not there. Most people are not really connected with the politics, and they're just kind of like trying to survive, and trying to
Hmm.
get through and get their money and be able to survive and and do their thing, catch a breath. And
Hmm.
they're trying to, a lot of them are also trying to be able to send money back home, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
to the motherland or to the islands, wherever they're from. So they're worried about working and sending
Hmm.
money home and not getting in trouble. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? They're not necessarily trying to be politicized, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's the reality for most of our people. Um, but there's also, there's always, and I also see uh there's been some awakening as well of the youth, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
trying to get politicized a little bit and getting more into Pan-Africanism. And also one of the reasons I say that is because we know that recently, not too long ago, the president over here has been trying to co-opt like Pan-Africanism. He actually spoke about Pan-Africanism, you know what I'm saying, and was like, and tried to like co-opt it to the point where now people have to be like, oh, I'm a leftist Pan-African.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? We're
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
obviously Pan-Africanism is not going to be right-wing, but
Hmm.
it makes me think of when you have to say real hip hop now.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying? You're
Yeah.
like, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is real hip hop because,
Yeah. Right.
commercial things took over. So it's kind of that way now with Pan-Africanism. You got to like justify what type of Pan-Africanism.
Interesting.
When to me,
Mhm.
if you're not anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, then that's
Mhm.
not Pan-Africanism. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? But today you never know. Like people will be like, you'll come through kind of like Dr. Umar.
Yeah. So what kind of like what does what was the French president's idea of Pan-Africanism? Like what is he
he
talking about?
he tried to say basically that like he thinks French should be like the Pan-African language and
Oh
things like
my
that.
God.
Yeah, he's like, so many African people speak French and this and that. And you know,
Man.
obviously try to be
Why?
like, I have great connections with all these African leaders, and we know what time it is with all of that. But yeah,
Mhm.
he spoke about it. He spoke about a
Interesting.
couple of things like that,
Mhm.
and yeah, but he's been saying wild things, man. That president, you know how they do. They keep the lies up, the
Mhm.
misinformation, they keep the misinformation up. And like I said, it's like the United States, it's an empire, and
Yeah.
yeah,
What?
a lot of propaganda. The propaganda apparatus is strong. That it's just a reality. And you know how I feel it a lot through my children, because I see
Okay.
my kids,
Mm.
that obviously your kids, when they go to school, my kids do go to public school, and they come home, and you see the influence from society and things.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Um,
some people unfortunately don't have the time. Well, even though I think we always have to make the time, but the reality is a lot of our people, uh, they don't get to kind of re-educate their children. They kind of let, the public system do it. Unfortunately,
mm.
that's the reality of a lot of our people, and
No, I think you're right. I think it's designed to be like that, where we are
yeah,
working just for, basic necessities and survival, that a lot of times people don't have the time to,
yeah,
or feel like they have the time to politically educate themselves. And like you said, I think one of the aspects that you mentioned is very important. I would kind of like to talk about as well, because as you know, like the internet makes the world small, right? We can see what's going on, through all these devices that we have. We can talk to brothers and sisters from all over the world,
mhm,
through social media and stuff. And we can also see what white nationalists are saying everywhere, right?
Yeah,
And one thing that MAGA and white nationalists in France obviously have in common that they are, especially nowadays, are really loud about is this idea of immigration and Islam, uh, you know, um, and so one thing that you mentioned, a lot of our brothers and sisters who are in France, hey, they're not trying to get kicked out, right? They're trying to make some bread. So even if they feel a certain way about, certain things and are, politically radical in a lot of cases, again, like you mentioned, they're there to make some bread so they can send back home to their families,
right.
not get in a situation where they're somewhere in a different country locked up. You know what I mean? Like all of these things are real
That's right.
things that can
Yeah, of
happen. But if
course.
you can talk about just like this pervasive like white nationalist view of in France of immigrants and Muslims and how they have this like the whole thing in America with the great replacement theory and how they feel like the browning of America and
Yeah,
Christianity will soon fall and this and that and this thing that they run on
you,
fear. Well, it seems
you,
like white nationalists in France are the same way.
you. That's what I was gonna say. You literally got voices on national television that share exactly that sentiment. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And like, like real racist, um, like anti-immigrant, Islamophobic, um, patriarchal, white
Mm-hmm.
supremacist, voices, that
Mm-hmm.
are national television just letting it out like it's nothing, like it's just another viewpoint, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah. It's real out here, and like I said, the youth over here, the main difference that I feel from the youth over here, and I also, lived in the United States for a while. The
Mm-hmm.
main difference that I feel in general is that, you know, the youth, they were born here. A lot of them, most of them were born here, as far as our brothers and sisters, but they're maybe only like one generation removed, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe two. So
Mm-hmm.
they're a little more connected, obviously, to the motherland. They're
Yeah.
more connected. They're like they still, most of them are still like, we're Africans, but that's changing too. Now
Mm-hmm.
there's this new sentiment of being French, like, oh no, we're French, this and that's starting to really take over as well. You know what I'm saying? Where the people are starting to really identify with being French, even though the way they're treating by French, the way they're being treated, the way we're being treated by French every day is obviously not like a citizen of the
Yeah.
nation,
Right.
But there's still that sentiment where like, no, I have the right. I have the right to be here because we're here and we're doing work here and we pay our taxes. This is our country as well. We're French. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? So there's all of that going on. And yeah, it's a lot of also there's another reality, which is what you said, that like, not wanting to quote unquote get in trouble, even though we don't
Yeah.
have to get politicized in order to get in trouble with authorities.
Right. Right.
They'll come at us. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the young brothers that they shoot down and that the police shoots in the streets, it's not because they're political. A lot of them are not political. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
But but so yeah, so the parents a lot of the times, even the parents or the grandparents, it was like, coming over here in order to quote unquote find a better life or be able to, get a job, or, for my children to get an education and, like I said, be able to send some money back home, help out the family, this and that. So it's also not necessarily a lot of times encouraged by the parents. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, there's all of that plays a factor, man. But like you said, it's all design, man.
Yeah.
It's all design.
What's funny about that, France, with this white nationalist anti-immigration stance, and the football team is all damn African. You know what I'm
The
saying?
basketball team as well. The basketball team, the
Yeah.
football team, all athletes. And the other day I was looking at, what music group has sold the most?
What?
French music group that has sold the most
Uh-huh.
around the world, international. It's called Cassav.
Hmm.
It's from Martinique. They're from
Oh
Martinique. That's
wow.
French nationality as well. You know
Wow.
what I'm saying? So it's Zouk music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Sold millions of records around the world. So they're like known as the French group that has sold the most.
Wow.
So you got that. You got all the like the main athletes winning gold medals. You know,
Hmm.
the judo. You know, basketball, soccer, obviously. You know, all of that. And yeah, man. And these brothers. That's another thing. You know, to get into because imagine if a lot of these brothers went to go play home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be real interesting, you know. But you know, me being a hooper, I know a lot of brothers and sisters that do go back home and play for their countries. The things is that a lot of times it's not that simple because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times in their countries also, you know, sometimes the presidents and the government is also a puppet government.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So, and they're not running things the right way over there. You
Right,
know what I'm saying?
right,
So
right.
you go play for them, and things you're not treated well. You're not things are not
Yeah.
happening well as well, and they're puppets as well. So at
Hmm.
the end of the day, a lot of them are like, yo, I don't even want to go play back home.
I'm at least
You know what I'm
do
saying? But
somewhat.
those but not everybody also has the choice. You know,
Hmm.
not everybody gets quote unquote chosen to play for the French team. You know, it's only 12 roster spots and it's
Hmm.
gonna be the best brothers over there. So a lot of them do go play back home. Uh, you know, it's but that it's a business, you know how it is,
Yeah.
high level sports, but it's super political with it, you know, because for obvious reasons. Now you're playing for France, you're rocking the flag heavy, and I see a lot of
Hmm.
them rocking the flag heavy with pride. It's difficult to see. And you know,
Yeah.
the same thing with the brothers in the
Yeah,
US. You know what I'm
exactly,
saying?
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You know.
Yeah,
I
man.
remember, let me tell you funny. I remember brothers here used to be like when Wade was playing for the US, they used to be like, yo, he's from Senegal. That's Wade. Wade. And they was like, what is they're like, yeah, Wade, what is he
One
doing
day,
over
I
there?
like it. I like
Yeah.
it. No, no, you real. That's real. It is extremely political. Playing for national teams, and again, these they don't. These white nationalists, they don't they on one hand they don't want you know any immigration, but again they support that. You know what I'm saying? Draining Africa of its valuable resources. They
Yeah.
don't mind that. You know what I mean?
Not at all. The people and the resources, and they're gonna justify it, saying that they're actually helping. You know, they're giving
Right.
opportunities, they're
Hmm.
creating jobs,
That's
they're, you know,
crazy.
all it's crazy, man. To
Hmm.
this day, and you hear, you know, another people that I like to talk about that sometimes they're forgotten. You know, it's the Spanish, man. Spain.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yo, Spain is next level with that because you know, because I'm Afro-Cuban, so we were colonized by Spain, man.
Yeah. Hmm.
And the level of racism that Spain implemented in South America's level of racism is crazy. We don't
Hmm.
understand that sometimes, man.
Hmm. Can you talk
But
to that?
like,
Can you talk about that some?
yeah, of course. But just the way that they think still to this day,
Hmm.
I mean, all of these white supremacists think that way, but you hear it a lot from Spain that they still to this day, you hear a lot of them saying how they actually helped, you know, African people when they went over there to colonize. They're like, no, we helped them. You know, we gave them, we made them civilized. We helped them,
Hmm.
you know, as far as God or whatever. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? And they still really believe that. I hear all heads speaking like they really believe it to their core. It's crazy, like sickening. It's a
Hmm.
sickness, man. But as
Hmm.
far as racism in South America, man, there was a lot of whitening, you know, and places like Argentina, even Brazil, which is the country with the most African people outside of the continent,
Hmm.
there was a lot of, you know, they sent a lot of Europeans to try to whiten the country. They did that hugely in Argentina, and in Argentina it worked because it's super
Yeah.
white. Argentina is very white. Like there's
Hmm.
a few black communities here and there, but it's very white. They worked on that in Cuba as well. You know,
Hmm.
they worked on that in Cuba as well, even though, you know, most of our population is still of African descent. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But the way that racism works, a lot of people um, that are mixed, you know, like myself, for example, they won't recognize they're African. You
Hmm.
know, even though they're of
Hmm.
African descent,
Hmm.
but they'll be like, nah, I'm, you know,
Hmm.
they'll identify with, you know, being Latino or being
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what works. That's why, I don't identify as with the term Latinos at all, what I'm saying,
Hmm.
personally, because I think, it divides us from other Africans, uh, in other nations, just because we were colonized by Spanish speaking people.
Yeah.
If you were colonized by English speaking people, French speaking people, whatever, our point of reference is Africa.
Absolutely.
It's not the language that we speak,
Hmm. That's
Um,
why I laughed whenever you said the president was like, "Yo, French should be the lingua franca of
he
Africa."
really
Like,
said
what?
that, man. He really said that, man.
Hey,
Yo, you gotta have some nerves, man. You
right,
gotta have some
right.
nerves with the colonizing all of our countries on the motherland for years, and
Hmm.
bringing in so much misery on the continent. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Mm.
I gotta have some nerve, man.
Man, for real, man. When we look at Burkina Faso, what's going on in West Africa, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, what do you think he represents for just like what does he represent for us Pan Africans and people who are in solidarity with him?
Man, I think what Ibrahim Traoré is doing over there, and just, not just him, obviously, the people around him, and
Yeah.
just the Sahel
Hmm.
state, the
Hmm.
Sahel states in general,
Absolutely.
is crucial. It comes in as at a crucial point. It's like a breath of fresh air that is very necessary, and it has inspired a lot of the youth, including in the motherland, that are
Hmm.
starting to get, that revolutionary, Pan-African ideology, and started believing in it again,
Yeah.
which is very necessary. He's willing to really stand up, for his people, and for sovereignty for our nations, and I love the fact that they already got together, that it's already three countries, and I'm looking forward to more countries joining the,
Me
the
too.
states. But the work that he's been doing in
Hmm.
Burkina Faso, man, has been great. From the first gold refinery,
Mm. Hmm.
the first national central bank, he built, in order to, uh, for economic and financial sovereignty. He's been working with agriculture, the first tomato processing plant,
Wow. Hmm.
and they also have a railway from Ghana to Burkina Faso,
Wow. Hmm.
in order to facilitate not only movement but also, just trade.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And solidarity with one another, right?
Solidarity, and
Mhm.
and just seeing the Sahel states. One of the things that I really loved was when, uh really, the people are able to move from Burkina Faso
Hmm.
to Niger,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they're like, this is still your land.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? That's
yeah,
a beautiful thing. That's
yeah.
Pan-Africanism. That's what's really
Facts.
needed.
Hmm.
Because sometimes, not sometimes, today, um, in the motherland, like somebody from maybe Angola may have a tougher time to go to Senegal than somebody from France. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Which is crazy. Like,
Hmm.
you won't even be asked for a visa, or it will be super easy for you to get a visa if you're coming from France to the motherland. But then if you're coming from Angola or from another African country, it's like, oh no, super difficult.
Yeah.
So, it's just these things that are very important that they've been, uh, doing. The hydroelectricity dam that they built,
Mm. Hmm.
you know, he's been doing a lot. They've been putting in work, for sovereignty, and just making it work. So I think it's very, very important. Uh, if I may, there's one thing though that I would like to see a little bit more from the people, which is, I think it's I think obviously we have to, give him his props, but I think it's important not to get lost in like the idolizing of people.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Too much.
Hmm.
And to really understand that we need to be, obviously we have to be behind him and support him, but the thing that we have to focus on really is the revolution.
Yeah.
It's not a single person, it's the
Hmm.
revolution as a whole.
Hmm.
I think that's important, because sometimes we get lost within that. And it's just a point that I had, because I was talking to one of my comrades last night, and he kind of brought that up. We were speaking about it, and I thought that was very true. you know, um, because then what you start seeing is certain people like yeah, Ibrahim Traoré, but then they don't necessarily know the ideology
Mm-hmm.
behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's not to knock him, but I'm
Yeah.
saying it's really for our people to get the PE, to get the knowledge, which is behind the whole thing, and to understand that the important part of it is really the revolutionary work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not just idolizing a person.
And
Like, because we're gonna see some of that as well. We're gonna see some people just out there just crazy, yeah, Brian,
yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
really understanding really what's going on.
Right.
So, there's that as well. And then you know, I'm optimistic with what's going on, but always cautiously though, because
Yeah.
unfortunately we've seen things similar before where we feel like, oh, now they're doing it, they're kicking out, the imperialists, and then sometimes it goes the wrong
Left.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Well,
what
I
I'm
don't
saying?
mean left. It
So
goes right.
right. It goes right. It go it goes right. Exactly. So hopefully, man, he keeps it going, and we always have to listen to the people that are on the
Mhm.
ground, that are over there. That's
Yes.
another thing that's
Good
important, I
point.
think, because we can't get lost. We're far away, Yes,
Hmm.
we can get a feel of what's going on, but we really have to listen to the people that are on the ground, and let's keep supporting, man, and hopefully he keeps it going, and other countries also start, joining as well, and we make this Pan-African thing work, man, because at this point we're really feeling it, man. It's Pan-Africanism or perish, brother.
Absolutely.
So
Pan-Africanism or perish.
yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Uh,
One thing I have like seeing was, there was, well, first off, we'll get there, but I want to ask you this. Uh, General Langley of AFRICOM, came out and who is a black man who y'all, if y'all don't know, he's the general, military general of AFRICOM. Um, and he came out and said that he, Captain Ibrahim was keeping resources from the people of Burkina Faso, and that whole thing. We might need to inject some American democracy over there, right? Like,
yeah.
and whenever you saw that, like, I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure you weren't shocked.
Nah,
But what were your thoughts?
man. First of all, I have to say I'm laughing because I saw your story earlier today.
Yeah, with that,
Like, with
his
the raccoon.
his raccoon in
Yeah,
the.
yeah, man. That's exactly it. That's a good one.
Yeah, man.
But man, listen, what I think is that, what I honestly makes me laugh, but also it's dangerous and it's sad, because what I think is that I hope that, our people are not actually listening to this guy and being like, yeah,
Yeah.
he's right or
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
To be honest, because again, the propaganda, they have the propaganda machine, they have the voice, and
Hmm.
it's dangerous. Most of the people don't get to watch Why's the Dome TV. They don't get
Hmm.
to watch Black Power Media.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? They don't see it. It doesn't show up on the feed.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Right.
but they
Mhm.
but they listen to this dude, to the
Yeah.
crazy things that he comes out with, and then there's gonna be analysis behind that of people, backing it up, being like, yeah,
Hmm.
blah blah blah. So it's dangerous. It's dangerous, man. It's dangerous, but like you said, it's not surprising at all. That's what they do. That's what they, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you see one thing I was happy to see was there was like a solidarity march, hands off Captain Ibrahim Traoré
mhm,
in New York. I want to say
mhm.
that there was one in London. I want to say there was one in
Paris.
France.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. We were
Yeah.
our organization was out there.
Bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that?
It was great, man. It was great. It was great to see the solidarity. Like I said,
Mm.
it's showing that, people, and the good thing that we actually saw there, because we do have a little problem where, people, most people are not Pan-Africanists, so they tend to, if there's a march for the Congo, you'll see almost only people from the Congo,
Mm,
unfortunately.
mhm, yeah.
But in this, we actually saw brothers and sisters from everywhere, and that was a
Dope,
beautiful thing.
dope, dope,
You know what I'm
dope.
saying? Yeah, so I
Mhm.
have to say that. So, shout
That's
out to
that's
everybody
very
that's been supporting.
interesting because
Yeah.
like you how you mentioned a lot of people in France brothers and sisters are like one generation removed from the continent, whereas in America, you know, a lot
Yeah.
of us are 250, 350, 400 years.
It's like Cuba, yeah. It's
Yeah,
like Cuba.
exactly. And so in a march like that, like unless it was like they're still they're still identifying with, hey, I'm from Congo and this
Yeah,
is my
because
issue
there's still
here.
too much. There's too. Sorry to cut your
No,
wisdom,
you're
but
good. No, you're good.
it's too much nationalism going on. You know, it's
Yeah,
too much
yeah,
like, yeah, nah, I'm
yeah.
Congolese and Congo the
Hmm.
flag, and so and then the same thing over there. Nah, I'm from Martinique or I'm from Senegal,
Hmm.
Senegal. There's a lot of that going on. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And
Hmm.
so
So when you saw everybody come together for this, like that
yeah,
had to be
it
a
was
good feeling, right?
yeah, it was a beautiful thing. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Yeah, it was a beautiful thing to see. And then um, some of the comrades, were able to speak and talk about the importance of Haiti. Also, we always
Mm,
try to mention Haiti.
absolutely.
We
Yeah.
always try to mention Haiti, let people know, like, yo, this is the first African Republic, first black.
Hmm.
But we was like, no matter where we came from, we were free over here. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So that's the inspiration to everything. The
Mm-hmm.
president of my organization, Amzat, always says that basically the Haitian Revolution is the beginning of Pan-Africanism.
Mm, mm, right.
Yeah, that's what he calls it. It's the beginning of Pan-Africanism. Even though I still think, some of the Pan-Africanism was seen from the beginning in, as far as Maroons, just, just up in the
Yeah.
hills, wherever they were at,
Yeah.
creating their own that was already Pan-Africanism because we're from everywhere. But
Hmm.
definitely the Haitian Revolution is a mark for sure, where like,
Indeed.
it's
No,
went down.
yeah, yeah, indeed, indeed, man. With you obviously being uh uh someone like myself who is very much into sports. I know it might be one of my contradictions, but um the Shador Sanders thing, right?
Mm,
You know, in every mock draft that I had saw on ESPN, top five pick, didn't really see, like maybe the worst I saw was top 20 but I'm not, but I didn't really see much of that. It was really top 10. And then, the first day of the draft comes on and he doesn't get called. Second day of the draft comes on, he doesn't get called. And then he gets drafted in the fifth round, right?
mm,
And then you start to hear reports of, you know, attitude. You start seeing white nationalists take joy in him, not
yeah,
getting drafted into the fifth round. And it did not seem like this had anything to do with sports, right? Like this
yeah.
was something different. Like what were your thoughts on that whole thing?
Man, first of all, I'm not gonna lie. At first, I was surprised.
Right.
Like I
Me
think
too. I was
most
too.
people, yeah, like most people, because even though I understand that it's a racist organization within a racist
Absolutely.
nation and all of that,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, they usually look at the green when it comes to that. They want to make that money. So when the players
Hmm.
have the talent, they want to go with it. But this obviously kind of proves to me that they wanted to make a point, that they got together and said, "Yo, let's make a point."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Let's
Hmm.
let them know we run things, and if we don't want things to happen, they're not happening. As
Hmm.
far as Deion Sanders and the whole thing that he's building and all of that. Now I think I'm not that familiar as much as I'm not as familiar with football, as I am with basketball, but I know there's a whole thing with NIL now
Oh
and
yeah.
things like that where things are different now. It's not
Hmm.
like back in the day. Like now, kids can make money in college. A lot of them now want to stay in college. They want
Yeah.
to, so
Absolutely.
there's that. So I think they were trying to make a point. But at the same time, I want to say, you know, I'm gonna contradict myself, but it kind of at the same time I want to say why are we surprised? Like I
Right.
said, it's a racist institution.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
racist institution within a racist
No,
nation, a
you're right.
racist sport. So when things like that happen, we should be like, yo, like we really still should be on the cap on our Kaepernick. We really
Yeah.
still shouldn't be even paying attention to them.
Right.
Unfortunately, but
Right.
that's
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of
No,
how I
you no, you're absolutely right. I'll even see some kind of parallels on what happened with Shador and what happened with Colin Kaepernick. And I saw a lot of
Mm,
people, and a lot of people that's what a lot of people said though. There's like, yo, like we supposed to not even be supporting this league,
mm, mm.
from what happened with it. Because don't be wrong, we know all of these organizations are racist,
Yeah,
but it was so out in the open, penalizing people for speaking out about state sanctioned violence and police violence. You know what I'm saying? Just shut up
yeah,
and play ball. I mean,
yeah.
to
It's
be honest
crazy.
with you, like, I mean, we shouldn't be supporting, but as you know, athletics has such a hold on people. It's a form of escapism for a lot of people.
Yeah,
And people who aren't like politically conscious, it's like in a lot of ways, in a lot of cases, and this is not just for Africans, this is for working class people,
mm,
period.
yeah.
That is their escape. Like they
Globally too. Globally.
globally,
Yeah,
bro. Like because like the way the NFL is here, like soccer or
yeah.
football, and like they go crazy,
They do.
fights, violence, all kind of shit.
Yeah,
Like yeah,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, it's kind of like a contradiction for us because, like, for example, I'm a New York Knicks fan,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I go crazy, man. I love my Knicks. It's like a
yeah.
sentimental thing for me because
Yeah,
when since I was a kid, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Same here,
But
same here.
you know what I mean? So, but yeah, we have to understand that these are, these organizations are, and I see it with basketball because I follow basketball so much. I
Hmm.
see how imperialism works and how
Mm,
the NBA works. You know what I'm
hmm.
saying? Like now they have this the Basketball Africa League,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Where they control now the talents in Africa. Now they have the best league
Mm,
in Africa, right? Now they're
hmm.
starting to work. Now they're starting to work with they were talking about building NBA teams in Europe now,
Mm, hmm.
NBA team. So like the Paris soccer team, which has infinite amounts of money, they the PSG. Now they said, oh yeah, we're interested in building a NBA team here, NBA franchise
Wow.
here. You know
Wow.
what I'm saying?
Wow.
So it's like the NBA just wants to control basketball globally. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? They're not
Yeah.
even content with having the best league. Now
Right.
they just want to control basketball as a whole. You know what I'm saying?
That is interesting to think about because I don't think so all of this, so like seeing how the world is, like some of the best players in NBA are, European players, right? Like,
Mm.
well, or from Europe,
Yeah,
Giannis and then but you got Jokic and you got Luca,
Luca, true.
a lot of these and so the NBA wants to control all of this talent. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, they want to control. They want to have their hands on early. They want to
Hmm.
be a part of that. They want to make sure that no other league comes close.
Yeah.
Because for example, now even though now they have the control on in Africa, which a lot of young talents are growing,
Hmm.
they still recognize that the second best league in the world is still the Euro League right now. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying?
Yes.
And there's a lot of American players over there, but still there's a lot of good players from all over the world.
Hmm.
They have a lot of money. Uh, and so yeah, so now they're like, no, we're gonna build some NBA teams over here. So,
Hmm.
but what does that mean for the Euro League though? How does that work?
Right.
That's gonna be interesting to see because a lot of those clubs are gonna be like, no, we're going to play for for the NBA or whatever, or unless they do a deal with the Euro. I don't know how it's gonna work, man. But they want to control everything, man.
Hmm.
We could see that.
And didn't they create a three on three basketball league to rival Ice Cube's? Like
Uh,
I believe that it's
in
in the
Europe?
works.
Oh, the
No, yeah,
NBA?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I
Hold on,
haven't
hold
heard
on,
about that. I
hold
haven't
on.
heard about that.
Yeah, hold on, real quick. Let me just make
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, that's interesting, man, because I know they were giving Ice Cube a tough time with that. Even though
Hmm.
Ice Cube wanted to work with them and he was like, nah, this is not to compete with y'all. We're gonna get the old school stars, the people that are no longer playing in your league
Yep.
and things like that. They were like, they didn't want to have anything to do with Ice Cube. They were like, nah, he even lost TV contracts off of that.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
lost
yeah. Yeah. I remember. I remember. You're right.
because
Uh,
the NBA was like, if you mess with him, it's a wrap.
NBA. So it says NBA has embraced three on three basketball, a fast paced version of the sport played on a half court with two teams. of three players. The NBA's due NBA three times summer series showcases local amateur players competing for prizes. Also, we saw that 3-on-3 even become kind of international,
Yeah,
and and it just seeing how they wanted nothing to do with Ice Cube, the person that kind of popularized the thing, is very interesting, but it's also not surprising. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Last thing I wanted to kind of ask you is, and just considering where we are in the world, Vital Hoops, an amazing podcast. Everybody if you're not familiar, the link is in the description. But being a part of the Black Power Media family and just being in media, what do you think right now the role for Black media, Black radical media is? Especially in these days and times.
that's a good one, man. I mean, we have to continue to radicalize our people, man.
Hmm.
We have to be there to radicalize our people, to give that radical perspective, in my opinion, that, Pan-African revolutionary perspective. It's very much needed because it's not everywhere. You know what I'm saying? It's difficult to find out there. So if we decide to do media, then we have to try to do a good job at it,
Hmm.
be consistent with it, and but also find a balance between. I think one thing that is important that we don't always do, myself included, it's difficult, but we have to find a balance between speaking directly to our people that are already radicalized and speaking to new people that may be coming in listening. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying? Because we're not going to be able to speak the same way.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's certain things that they're not going to catch on if they're not radicalized yet, but maybe they're interested, they want to learn.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So we have to do a good balance of that, you know what I'm saying? Of being able to bring people in through whatever we're covering. And then also we have to do a good balance of already talking to the people that know what time it is, but they still want to get this whatever news message coming from us. So I think we have to be consistent, we have to be truthful and, loyal, and to continue to do it's part of the struggle, man.
Yeah.
Part of the struggle is, um what we do. Everything we do should be part of the struggle. I always say, like, it's about culture because culture dictates what we do. So our culture has to be revolutionary and Pan-Africanist.
Yeah.
And so if we choose to do media, that's part of our life, part of what we do, then we have to make it that way as well. You know what I'm saying? And try to do the best that we can. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Indeed. And then I'm honored to, be on the morning show with you, brother. And
Hey man, it's an honor.
man, before we go, I just gotta ask a quick question.
For sure.
Here in the States, the movie Sinners has been doing really well. Um, do black films made in the States, do they get any run over there in France?
They do. They
Mhm.
do. I haven't heard anything from Sinners yet. I
Okay.
haven't heard from it. I just saw a couple things online, but mostly
Hmm.
coming from US. But they do. There's like if you speak to people like from my age and everything, like they used to watch like Martin shows like
Yeah.
Martin and all of that as
Yeah.
well. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They would translate it. They would
Hmm.
translate it and people would watch it. So yeah, a lot of black, sitcoms and even films, they come over here. They come over here to France, yeah, without a doubt. These things are big time productions and
Yeah.
they usually kind of go global.
Yeah.
So yeah, 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 for sure.
Dope,
Um,
dope.
but I've heard a little bit from the movie Sinners, not too
Mhm.
much. So I don't know much about it yet.
Yeah, I watched it. I enjoyed it, man. I would
Okay,
say check it out, and then
I
we'll
will.
rap about it. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt, no doubt. I will check it out.
Brother Fernando, man, for everybody that would like to, follow you, let them know how to follow you on social media.
For sure, man. Hey, I appreciate you, my brother. Thank you. Thank you for
I
having me
appreciate
on
you.
Wise the Dome, man. Everybody make sure you stay locked in with Wise the Dome. You know what I'm saying? And also definitely come check us out at Black Power Media. Like you said, blackpowermedia.org. Subscribe over there. Um, you can follow me on Instagram, the at Vital Hoops Podcast. If you're interested in my work with my Cuban hip hop group, it's at 340 MS Hip Hop. And my personal page is at Coach Fernando Cardenas. So yeah, that's that. Got a lot going on. Like you said, Bada Hoops
Yeah,
always, Pan-Africanism, basketball, hip hop, holistic health, all of that.
yeah.
And yeah, we give thanks, man.
Nah,
Appreciate you.
man, I definitely appreciate everything that you do. I appreciate you coming through, man. This has been a great build, man. And until the next time, my brother, it's
Peace.
been dope.
Thank you, man. Peace.
Peace, family.